Hey principals, AI is here. Who's shaping it? It's no longer a future conversation, it's already here. It is influencing the way teachers are planning their lessons, communicating with families, and supporting our students. So here's what we know. It is quietly becoming a part of our daily instructional practice. Teachers are using it. But the real question is whether or not AI will shape teaching, because that is literally already happening. The question is, who gets to shape that change? Will it be our software companies, procurement teams, or will it be the educators who actually are understanding students' instruction and learning, right? This conversation is about educator agency because teachers are not part of designing AI and how it enters the classroom. We kind of risk building these systems that work around teachers rather than strengthening it. So we have this massive adoption surge while kind of our infrastructure is lagging. So I want to show this slide because it really captures the reality that many educators are feeling right now. AI adoption is becoming it's exploding on the market. 83% of teachers reported, of course, using generative AI last year, but the concern is nearly 68% received no training. And even more concerning is only about 14% of districts have policy. So that creates what we call this gap in infrastructure. Teachers are experimenting, innovating, and trying out new things, supporting students, especially with the new technology, but our systems are meant to support them are truly lagging behind. So again, we cannot ask our teachers to continue to pour. And so if AI is supposed to be transforming our learning, then our institution must build those infrastructures that allow teachers to kind of use it responsibly, of course, and safely and effective. We see this fast purchasing, and I say because that it kind of replaces our strategic planning. So you're seeing across the states, districts are starting to purchase, right? You're seeing a lot of procurement going up, AI tools, in fact, it was just 6 months before like 850 districts spent about $5 million on AI tools. Yes. And probably your district is included. But here's the challenge. Very few of those purchases happen through kind of formal strategic planning process. Even fewer of them came through this RFP process. So that tells us this. Many districts are responding to the urgency rather than kind of building it thoughtfully. And then thinking about technology adoption, it should kind of never move faster than the vision. And so schools are kind of buying first these tools without kind of defining how these tools support teaching and learning. And then the technology becomes kind of the noise instead of the progress towards building. So I shared this kind of at South by Southwest, really looking at these 4 buckets. We call it the kind of the agency, like what is really going on. This framework kind of illustrates how our teachers' involvement and how we need it to evolve. And so at the lowest level, teachers are simply told what to do by administrators. So a new platform appears during a one-day PD. It's told, hey, this is what we have. This is what we want you to use session. And then the implementation is kind of expected immediately. Right? And then the next level is really thinking about surveys are sent out, but the results, let me just say, rarely shape decisions. And then we kind of move towards, all right, you're involved. Teachers are already defining the problems alongside the leaders, etc. And then thinking of the most powerful stage is leading. At this level, educators are actually sitting at the table designing. They're help shaping and implementing. They're talking about professional learning, some of the challenges, what are some classroom applications around this. True collaboration happens when teachers are not a recipient of the change. They are kind of the architects of the true motivation and change. So I think I said this in my South by Southwest session, the hidden cost of the top-down implementation. When technology is kind of purchased and top-down, we have these 3 major problems that kind of, emerge. First, the missed challenges. Without teacher input, these tools often fail to address some of the real institutional barriers that teachers are facing in the classroom every day. The second is trust. Trust kind of deteriorates. We're talking about, research shows that 83% of teachers worry about AI and its impact on, academic integrity. And when these concerns are not addressed, the confidence in implementation, again, erodes and declines. Third is the fears around data, privacy, and security. Teachers want to know that their students' data is being protected and know that their systems are safe. And when we continue moving forward with ignoring these concerns, it really doesn't accelerate the process. It slows it down. And again, the trust hinders this transformation. So our goal is to move this shift from compliance to true, capacity. Many of our schools are operating with what I call this kind of compliance model. The new tools introduced through an email or announcement, celebrate, hello, we got this new tool. Decisions are made after the tools are already purchased. And then the teacher concerns about privacy or infrastructure, it just remains unheard or unresolved. But then the goal should not be compliance. It should be really thinking about the capacity. Capacity truly means that educators have defined what success looks like. Capacity, even means that, now that we're part of the decision-making process, this professional that we've embodied our trust drives that implementation that you see rather than the mandate top-down approach. So when schools build this capacity, the innovation becomes sustainable because the teachers are the one driving the success. And so when we talk about scaling expertise through leaders, our strategic leaders, which are our teacher leaders, this is one of the most effective ways to scale innovation is through teacher leadership. Traditionally, professional development flows through kind of this pipeline, one expert, one training, hundreds of teachers. But when districts are truly investing in their leaders and their teachers, that model of change, educators learn the fundamentals, the safety consideration, the instructional applications, and, truly those teachers who lead them bring that knowledge back into their school. And kind of the result is, instead of that one expert supporting many schools, you create hundreds of school-based leaders building the capacity locally. And so that innovation spreads much faster than when kind of the expert lives inside the system. And so if we're truly talking about the statewide level infrastructure, some states are beginning to think about, what does this infrastructure look like rather than these kind of piecemeal isolated tools, right? They're investing in these three buckets, these three components. One is the human capital, which I say all the time, hiring people, maybe AI specialists to support, or EI 360 to support professional development and continuous implementation. Second, thinking about being very strategic about procurement, where states kind of are negotiating these contracts to ensure, student data, safety, quality, consistency. And then third, thinking about like guidance, providing districts with these frameworks of responsible usage. I know Puerto Rico have already released, K-12 AI guidance frameworks. And so when this infrastructure is already in place, schools do not have to kind of reinvent the wheel. They can focus on teaching and learning. So now we're talking about acceleration, right? And then precise professional development and coaching. So really thinking about what matters the most, and that's student outcomes. So thinking of when our teachers have the right tools and the coaching in place, there are several things that can happen. First, teachers kind of begin to trust technology, understand how to use it effectively. Second, you have these feedback cycles and acceleration of the feedback cycles, thinking how AI can not only personalize and support learning, but it can also personalize adult learning in real time. And then third, thinking about how our infrastructure can now become more precise. We can target specific instructional strategies that we want to use in our classroom. And ultimately, the goal is stronger outcomes. Of course, AI is never replacing teachers. It should amplify our expertise, but really thinking strategically about what this looks like even in a K-12 setting. Now, I put these two slides because I want you to kind of take a look at the two kind of different realities. On the left side is kind of what happens when our tools are implemented without the true educational partnership. Even strong tools get used inconsistently. And think about when students, right, who need them the most are often the ones that tend to suffer. So when educators, pretty much have that agency, everything changes, right? Tools become stronger. Teachers think of alternative ways to even make the tool effective. Instruction changes. Professional trust feels kind of real. And then the technology doesn't stand alone. People are the ones that transform the school systems. Now, I always ask, are you building the infrastructure or are you just accumulating a lot of tools, right? And so I kind of want to close with this question. We are working on building this infrastructure. So because of all these decisions that we're making will shape our classrooms for years to come. If AI is introduced without education or an educator or teacher partnership, we truly risk creating a system that teachers kind of work around instead of truly with. But I think if we build this infrastructure alongside educators, with their voices and amplify their voices, their expertise, and their leadership at the very center of what we're designing and developing, then I think AI can strengthen teaching and learning. And I think this is the opportunity in front of us. not to adopt another tool, another technology, but kind of design the future with teachers leading the way. Hope these tips help. If you have any questions, DM me for more. Talk to you later. Bye.